Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet wander through the forgotten corners of history. Tonight, we step back into the bustling, steamy, and surprisingly uncomfortable world of ancient Rome. Not through the eyes of emperors or generals, but through the weary feet and sore backs of everyday citizens. We'll begin in the murky waters of a Roman public bathhouse, then follow the strange and tragic path of a teenage emperor. Next, we'll tiptoe into a forgotten Roman cult hidden in shadowy caves. And finally, we'll dine in decadent silence at the table of a Roman senator. So settle in. Close your eyes and let the long, slow tide of history wash over you. Why you wouldn't last a day in a Roman public bathhouse. Picture yourself in Rome, the city of marble and madness, sometime in the 2nd century CE. The streets buzz with sandals. On cobblestone, carts creak under amphorae of oil. And everywhere, people are talking loudly. The sun bakes the roofs and alleys, and the air is thick with smells. Olive oil, meat, fish, and dust. Boo, you're filthy, sweaty, and your back aches. You need a bath. But you're not going home. You're going to the Thermae, a sprawling Roman public bathhouse. Everyone does. Place. It's not just a place to get clean. It's a social hub, a business center, a spa, a gym, and sometimes a nightmare. You pay a few coins and step inside. Immediately, you're hit by the heat and the noise. Voices echo off marble walls, naked bodies, male and female. Depending on the hour, crowd, the wide hall. You try to stay calm, but the heat is already starting to get to you. Your clothes go in a locker, unguarded, and you step into the appetitorium, the changing room, feeling suddenly vulnerable. Now comes the tepidarium, the warm room. It's steamy, with mist rising like fog over hot tile. Your pores open. We start. Next is the caldarium, the hot room, hot as in scorching. Your sandals slip slightly on the damp floor. You lower yourself into the pool, trying not to scream. The water burns. A strigil, a curved bronze tool, is handed to you. It's for scraping oil and dirt from your skin. And no, there's no soap. An attendant, roughly, smears olive oil on your skin. Then scrapes hard. You're shedding sweat, dead skin, and some dignity. All around you are conversations, arguments, business deals. It's not relaxing. It's loud, awkward, and dizzyingly hot. You move on, lightheaded, to the frigidarium, the cold room. The plunge pool is icy. You dunk, you gasp, you may faint. You dry off with a rough cloth. Your clothes might be gone. Theft is common. If not, congratulations. You survived the bathhouse. Barely tomorrow, you'll do it again. The miserable rise of Emperor. Now let us drift forward a few decades into the decadent twilight of the Roman Empire. The year is 2 18 CE. A teenage boy from Syria, barely 14 years old, has just become Emperor of Rome. His name is Elagabalus, and his story is strange, sad, and spectacular. Born into a powerful priestly family, Elagabalus was a high priest of the sun god Elagabalus, a deity little known to Romans. His rise to power was orchestrated by his ambitious grandmother, he who claimed he was the illegitimate son of the former emperor. The army supported him, and with their backing, he marched on Rome and took the throne. From the start, he was different. He brought his Eastern god to Rome and tried to make Elagabal the chief deity of the empire. He forced senators to watch as he paraded a black meteorite, the physical form of his god. He wore women's makeup. He asked to be called emperor. How? He married a Vestal virgin, violating sacred Roman law. He was said to have married both men and women, sometimes simultaneously. He held lavish banquets that went on for days, filled with absurd foods and strange entertainments. He once served dinner entirely made of glass. Another time, he released wild animals during a party, just for fun. But Rome was not amused. The senators despised him. The Praetorian Guard, who protected the emperor, grew restless. For chaotic years, they had enough. Elagabalus and his mother were assassinated. But their borders were dragged through the streets. He was 18. His reign was brief, bizarre, and marked by a boy playing emperor in a world that had no patience for playing. Now let us descend into the darkness, beneath the busy streets of ancient Rome, in hidden chambers carved into hillsides or beneath temples. Men gathered in silence. They were members of the cult of Mithras, a secretive, exclusive religion whose rites have puzzled historians for centuries. Mithraism, as it's now called, was popular among soldiers and merchants from the 1st to 4th centuries CE. But they left behind no scripture, no written doctrine, only clues and many questions. Their temples, called Mithria, were dark, cave-like spaces. At the far end, nearly every one featured the same image. Mithras slaying a bull, a round, a dog, a snake, a scorpion, each symbolic, each mysterious. Initiates passed through 7 levels of membership with names like Raven, Lion, and Persian. They took oaths. They fasted. They may have reenacted rituals in silence or secrecy. Only men were allowed. What did they believe? What were they promised? Eternal life, cosmic knowledge, brotherhood. We still don't know. The cult faded away after Christianity took hold. Some temples were better, others were converted. The images remain haunting, beautiful, unknowable. You can still visit them, quiet chambers beneath noisy cities. The whisper of something lost. At last, we rise above the noise and grime into the marbled halls of power. Imagine you've been invited to dine with a Roman senator. Ooh. The home is enormous. A domus with columns, mosaics, and a central courtyard with trickling water. You remove your shoes. Slaves bathe your feet. You recline on a couch beside a low table. The dinner begins. It's called a cena, and it may last for hours. Firth, gustaio, the appetizers, olives, eggs, wine, mixed with honey. Music plays softly in the background. Then, prima mensa, the main course. Roasted peacock, dormice stuffed with nuts, fish in fermented sauce. Finally, secunda mensa, the dessert. Fruits, cakes, more wine. You're surrounded by senators, poets, merchants, but conversation is delicate. One wrong word can doom your career. Sometimes guests are served better food than others, depending on status. Others are served spoiled dishes as a joke. Politics are everywhere, even at dinner. And when the cena ends, you bow, thank your host, and leave carefully. Because in Rome, even a meal could be dangerous. Thank you for joining this quiet walk through the world of ancient Rome. Perhaps you've already drifted off to sleep. If not, stay a while longer. There are many more forgotten corners of history waiting in the silence. Welcome back, dear listener, to another quiet and meandering journey through the less glamorous pages of history. Tonight, we drift into the gaslit haze of 19th century London. A city booming with invention and wealth, but one whose heart pulsed in overcrowded alleyways and soot-choked tenements. We begin our night in the squalor of a Victorian slum, tracing the routines of the forgotten poor. Then we unravel the peculiar case of a domestic murderer with a calm demeanor. Next, we follow the reeking tide of the Great Stink and its unlikely consequences. And finally, we enter the quiet, corseted world of a Victorian lady of leisure, where discomfort often wore silk gloves. So let your thoughts grow soft and slow, and let history's fog settle gently around you. It is 1852, and you are poor in London. You live in Whitechapel, or perhaps in St. Giles. The sky is always grey, or at least it feels that way. The soot clings to your hair, your clothes, your lungs, and you've just woken up. Your bed is straw, shared with siblings. Room smells of damp, smoke, and the neighbor's chamber pot. You step onto the cold floor, no indoor plumbing. If you want water, you fetch it from the pump down the alley, and you boil it if you can afford coal, which today you can't. The walls are thin. You hear coughing through them. Someone died last night. You aren't sure who. You dress quickly in the same clothes as yesterday. They're your only You walk through mud rats, skittering underfoot, past children who no longer cry when they're hungry. Work is whatever you can find. Laundry, matchbox, making, dock hauling. If you're a child, maybe you sweep chimneys. If you're lucky, there's soup. You step into a workroom. 10 people, 1 window. The air is thick. You cough. It sounds wet. Is it phlegm? Or something worse? The landlord knocks again. Rent is overdue. P might throw you out. But where would you go? The street. At night, you return to your corner. You sleep on your side so you don't breathe in the mold. You dream of bread. You wouldn't last long. Most didn't. Now let us turn to a tale that seems quiet at first. Almost polite. Dr. Harley Harvey Crippen was a mild American homeopath living in London at the turn of the 20th century. He lived with his wife, Cora, a brash woman who longed to be a singer. Their marriage was strained. Dr. Crippen was small, quiet, and perpetually tired. Cora was loud, critical, and often unfaithful. One day in 1910, Cora vanished. Crippen said she had returned to America. Her friends were suspicious. They visited the house and found her belongings untouched. Meanwhile, Crippen had taken up with his secretary, Ethelene Eve, who soon began wearing Cora's jewelry. Police grew curious. A visit to the Crippen home revealed something odd beneath the floorboards. A mass of flesh, no bones, no head, just a torso. Crippen fled. Peel. He and Ethel disguised themselves and boarded a ship to Canada. But the ship's captain recognized them and sent a wireless telegram. The first murder case solved with radio. Crippen was arrested, tried, and hanged. Ethel was spared. His demeanor never changed. Calm, even kind. To this day, some argue he was innocent. Let us now open the windows. Though in 1858, that wouldn't help. The summer was hot, exceptionally hot, on the River Thames, which wound through London like a silver artery, had turned brown, then black, then unbearable. The city's sewage flowed directly into the river. For years, people had tolerated the smell, but now it was too much. Parham, located right beside the river, tried to douse the windows with lime-soaked cloths. Members could barely stay in the chamber. People gagged on the street. Letters from the time described the stench as utterly disgusting, ferocious, and strangling. The cause: a growing population, no proper sewer system, and decades of waste. The solution came from Joseph Bazalgette, an engineer who proposed massive new sewers under the city. The crisis led to action. Within a decade, his underground channels transformed London's sanitation and may have saved tens of thousands of lives. The stink faded, but the memory lingered. Let us now rise, not into the air, but into privilege. You are a Victorian lady. Bye. You wake not in a slum, but in a large house, under heavy blankets. A servant brings tea and hot water. You do not dress yourself. Your maid helps lace the corset, tighten the stay. You do not breathe deeply. You descend the stairs, gliding, never rushing. Breakfast is soft-boiled eggs, toast, marmalade. You sip tea with silent restraint. Your day is filled with social calls. Calling cards are exchanged. You must say the right things. Never too little, never too much. Perhaps you play piano or embroider, or read poetry, the acceptable kind. If you are unmarried, you think of marriage. If you are married, you manage the household. But never the finances. Maya, you take a walk, always with gloves. Your skin must not tan. Brown skin is for the working class. In the evening, dinner served by candlelight, in silence, with many courses. You speak in quiet tones, nod at the right moments, and never discuss discomfort. At night, your maid undresses you. You sit at your vanity, brush your hair 100 times, and go to bed, tightly laced, properly composed. You are a lady, but even your life is not your own. Thank you for joining this slow drift through the layers of Victorian life. Whether you're still with us or already dreaming, may your nights be far quieter and cleaner than those we visited. Tonight, dear listener, we journey to the gilded halls of pre-revolutionary France, where chandeliers sparkled and powdered wigs towered. But not for everyone. Our evening begins not in the banquet hall, but behind the scenes, in the cramped and candlelit world of the chateau servants. Then we follow the tragic unraveling of Marie Antoinette, a queen trapped in luxury. Next, we peer into the secrets of Versailles, hidden corridors, where whispers echoed louder than footsteps. And finally, we attend the waking rituals of the Sun King himself. A life of grandeur, so repetitive, it may just lull you to sleep. Settle in, let your breath slow, and slip quietly into a forgotten century. It is the year 1774, and you are a servant, not just in any noble house, but at the Chateau de Versailles, the very center of French royal life. From the outside, it glows with gold, mirrors, and music. Put inside your world is a maze of narrow corridors, hidden stairs, and long days. Your day begins well before sunrise. You sleep in a small, crowded attic, barely heated in winter. Phew, you're up at 4, sometimes 3, depending on your duty. You dress in the same uniform, plain, clean if you're lucky, and begin work before the chateau stirs. You carry chamber pots, dozens of them, sometimes hundreds. Big, clean floors that will soon be covered in powdered footprints. You polish silver until your hands blister. Be you fire, stoke fires, carry messages, and bow to anyone better dressed than you, which is everyone. You are invisible, but you are everywhere. You may serve in the kitchens, hot, sweltering, filled with shouting. Oh, in the stables, where cold fingers hitch carriages in the dark. You wait in silence for the nobles to call, often only to be dismissed. You eat in shifts. If there is time, meals are plain. You are not to be seen in the grand halls unless summoned at night. If you are lucky, you collapse into straw. If not, you're still carrying logs or scrubbing chamber pots. You hear music laughter, dancing, but never join, begin, and tomorrow it begins again. Now let us turn our eyes upward to the Queen herself. Marie Antoinette arrived in France as a teenager. An Austrian archduchess offered as a diplomatic bride. At first, she was nervous, uncertain, and entirely controlled. Every action, how she dressed, how she ate, how she spoke, was scripted. Then came indulgence. She hosted masked balls, built private gardens, and wore extravagant gowns. She commissioned a miniature village where she could play at being a shepherdess. The people called her Madame B, yet behind the lace and pearls was a woman cornered. She had no political power. She bore immense pressure to produce an heir. Higher, every move was watched, whispered about, and ridiculed in pamphlets. As revolution stirred, her world narrowed. The palace grew tense. Friends fled. Her husband, King Louis XVI, grew paralyzed with indecision. In 1789, the royal family was forced to leave Versailles. They were moved to the Tuileries Palace in Paris, prisoners in fine clothes. In 1793, Marie Antoinette was tried for treason. She rode to the guillotine in silence. The crowds jeered. Her carriage was slow. Her death was swift. She was 37. Let us now walk where few were allowed. The narrow spaces behind Versailles brilliant. The chateau is vast, but not all of it is grand. Behind the hall of mirrors, behind the salons and drawing rooms, there is another Versailles, one of servant staircases, service tunnels, and hidden doors. Here, footsteps echo, oil lamps flicker. These are the spaces where servants moved unseen. Messages passed. Food was delivered. Affairs began and ended without notice. The royal family, too, used these passages. Queen Marie Antoinette had a secret stairway in her bedroom, used to escape during the storming of Versailles. These corridors held gossip, preached secret, occasionally danger. Nobles used them to visit guards used them to follow suspects. Many are still there to divvy, unused. Historians explore them, sometimes getting lost. They form a silent skeleton behind the palace's glittering skin. Finally, we return to light, the intense, gilded light of the Sun King. Louis XIV ruled longer than any monarch in European history, over 72 years. Prose, and every day of his life followed a strict ceremonial rhythm. He awoke at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp. His lever, or rising ceremony, began. Nobles filed into his bedchamber in stages, each permitted closer access depending on rank. One handed him his robe, another his slippers, another the mirror, beige-washed, dressed, and prayed, all before an audience. Then breakfast. Then government business. He met ministers, signed edicts, gave audiences, bar, always with an eye on appearances. Lunch was solitary. Then came walks in the garden, fountain shows, and sometimes a hunt. Dinner was public. Hundreds watched him eat. He smiled. He nodded. He barely tasted his food. Evenings were filled with music, theater, or more ceremony. At night, another ritual, the kucha, or go into bed, ceremony. Everything was performance, even sleep. Behind the grandeur, Louis was a man bound by rules, bound by image, a key, yes, but also a prisoner of expectation. Thank you for sharing this slow step through the polished and pained world of Versailles. As the candles flicker out, may your rest come easier than it did for those who served, watched, or ruled within those golden walls. Tonight, dear listener, we journey to feudal Japan, a land of silent snowfall, tea steam, and hidden blaze. Our path begins in the shadow of power, as the unseen hand serving a samurai lord. Then we follow the slow-burning tale of 47 masterless warriors whose loyalty would define a nation's ideals. Next, we slip into the silent world of ninja tactics, more mundane than myths would have you believe. Finally, we rise into the serene yet stifling rituals of court life among the elite. Settle in, draw the night around you like a kimono, and drift into a distant age. It is the 17th century. You are not a warrior, but you serve one. Your master is a samurai, bound by honor, by the sword, and by a code you must obey. Even when you don't understand it, you live in his compound, perhaps in Edo, or in a remote domain. Your days begin before the sun, and they rarely end before exhaustion. You rise and clean the house. Paper walls, tatami, mats, lacquered wood. Dust shows everywhere. Mistakes are not forgiven. You help dress the master, each layer of kimono folded precisely. You must say little, speak only when spoken to. Bow low, move quietly. You may not look him in the eyes, but you polish the blade. The katana is sacred, not a tool, not a weapon, but an extension of his soul. A single scratch might be your last mistake. You prepare tea, you run errands in wooden sandals across stone paths in the rain. You deliver messages, receive orders, maintain silence, always silence. You are invisible, but you carry secrets, burdens, expectation. One wrong step, one poorly timed cough, and you might be dismissed, or worse. Prayer service is your life. There is no promotion, no reward, only duty. Now let us follow a tale told in quiet voices over centuries. In 1701, a noble named Asano Naganori was insulted by a court official, Kira Yoshinaka. In a flash of rage, Asano drew his blade in the shogun's palace, a grave offense. He was ordered to commit seppuku ritual suicide. His samurai were left masterless. They became ronin, disgraced. For 2 years, they waited, pretended to fall apart, took jobs as merchants, drunks, beggars. All the while they plotted. Then, one snowy night, they struck. They stormed Kira's mansion in silence. They found him. They killed him. Then they marched across the city to present his head at their former lord's grave. They turned themselves in. They bowed. They asked to die honorably. And they were granted that wish. Kun. Each Ronin was allowed to commit seppuku, a death of dignity, of loyalty. Their graves lie together, still visited today, a monument not to revenge, but to service. Let us now drift into darker corners. The ninja or shinobi live in legend, smoke bombs, silent kills, disappearances. But the truth is quieter. Most ninjas were spies, scouts, informants. They wore normal clothes. They worked as farmers or monks by day. By night, they gathered intelligence. They used disguises, firecrackers, hidden blades, yes, but rarely swords. They avoided combat. They preferred to vanish. They were not magic. They were methodical. Ninja manuals, such as the Banzen Shukai, detailed techniques. Walking without sound. Scaling walls, using weather to mask movement. They measured footsteps, waited. Their goal was not glory. It was completion. Success meant being forgotten. In a world that honored loud loyalty, they thrived in silence. At last, we rise from the shadows into Lakard. You are in the inner chambers of a daimyo, a powerful feudal lord. His court is a theater of grace and pressure. Silk robes glide across polished floors. Paper walls conceal conversation. A single look can speak volumes. You sip tea with precision. You listen. You never yawn. Every ritual matters. The tea ceremony is not just refreshment. It is philosophy. Every fold of the fan, every swirl of steam has meaning. There are poets, calligraphers, musicians, but even beauty serves power. Gifts are exchanged, not for joy, but for politics. A plum blossom painting can signal alliance. A poorly timed poem can insult generation, and yet it is beautiful. Cherry blossoms fall like snow. Lanterns flicker in the dusk. Even silence is choreographed. To live here is to balance grace and fear. You may never raise your voice, but you must never drop your guard. Thank you for joining this gentle journey through the layered world of feudal Japan. May your rest tonight be deeper than the silences of the samurai's house, and lighter than the fall of a sakura petal. Welcome once again, dear listener, to another gentle descent into the forgotten corners of history. Tonight we step softly into the shifting sands and echoing be stillness of Central Asia. Our journey begins with a weary camel driver crossing the vast Gobi Desert, his footsteps lost to time. Then we follow the perilous ambitions of Xuanzang, a monk who defied emperors for the sake of sacred texts. Next, we unearth strange ruins in the desert, ghost city swallowed by sand. And finally, we sit beneath silk tents, surrounded by gold and horsehair, listening to the quiet strategies of a Mongol Khan. Settle in, take a slow breath, and let the dust of centuries fall gently around you. You rise before the sun, not from a bed, but from a mat laid across packed earth. It is cold, bitter, dry, cold. Your breath fogs as you stir the embers of last night's dung fire. A sliver of pink crests, the sand dunes. It will be hot soon. You are a camel tender in the Gobi Desert sometime in the 8th century. Your caravan carries silk, salt, incense, sometimes gold, but not for you. You check the ropes, tighten the saddles. Pit the camels groan, 2 humped Bactrian giants with sour temper. You know each by name, though they barely tolerate yours. Your life is walking, days of walking, over stones, salt flats, dunes. Your boots were thin, your lips crack. The wind never stops. It howls in your ears, saps your strength, whispers, threat. You sleep in your clothes. You drink bitter tea, made from melted ice or brackish wells. You eat dried meat. You rarely talk, banded sweet beyond the rocks. Sandstorms blind and bury. One wrong turn, and you disappear. You keep walking. You reach an oasis. You unload goods, rest the camels, barter for food. Then you turn back. The desert is never finished with you. Now, we follow a man with a map drawn only in memory. Xuanzang was a Chinese monk in the 7th century who sought the true teachings of Buddhism. Not content with local texts, he resolved to journey to India, illegally, against imperial order. He slipped past guards and into the Taklamukan desert. His path crossed banded lands, frozen mountain, and unfamiliar tongues. He had no army, no wealth, only purpose in the Gobi. He nearly died of thirst. He crossed the Tian Shan mountains in blizzards. He debated scholars in Sanskrit and Pali. He copied texts by lantern light. He reached Nalanda, India's greatest monastic university. He studied, he listened, he translated, and then he returned. 17 years later, he brought back 657 texts, many never seen in China before. He was honored, but never canonized. History calls him a pilgrim. But he was also a rebel, a scholar, and a man who walked farther than most dared dream. Now let us step into silence, into ruin. Along the old Silk Road lie places where cities once stood. Lulan, Nia, Miran, cities that thrived on trade, then vanished. Lulan sat at the edge of a lake, bustling with merchants, priests, travelers. Then the lake dried, winds rose. The city was abandoned. Nia was once a green oasis. It held scrolls in 17 different languages. Houses of wood and clay, orchards, wells. Then, one by one, they were covered. Archaeologists find shoes, letters, hairpins, wooden boards with names. Everything preserved by dryness, then forgotten again. What ended them? Shifting rivers. Political collapse. A change in trade wind. No one knows for sure, but the desert remembers at last. We sit beneath canvas and cloud. You are in the court of a Mongol Khan. perhaps in the 13th century, bears Gare, a round felt tent, smells of tea, leather, and firewood. Outside, horses graze, gods sharpen blades, children chase sheep inside. The Khan listens to envoys, to generals, to dream. His day begins with earrag, fermented mare's milk. Then business he does not write, he commands. His words ripple out across steppes, carried by riders in every direction. P maps conquests in the dirt. He blesses marriages. He hears disputes. Justice is swift, often brutal, yet the life is not lavish. Meals are plain, chairs are low. Wealth is mobility, not gold, but horses. B. At night, stories are told by firelight. The stars are vast, the winds are old, and the Khan sleeps with a dagger at arm's reach. Thank you for wandering across the quiet deserts with me tonight. May your sleep be deeper than a sand-buried city, and your dreams stretch farther than the Silk Road ever reached. Tonight, dear listener, we travel to the fertile banks of the Nile, but not to admire the pyramids or the Goldens. Instead, we step into the muddy sandals of those who tilled the earth, the forgotten hands behind Egypt's glory. We begin with the harsh rhythm of a farmer's life along the Nile. Then we follow a cursed tomb and the quiet dread it left behind. After that, we explore the secrets of lost Egyptian perfumes, still lingering in pottery shards. Finally, we ascend into the luxurious silence of a priest's chamber, where power was worn like linen robes. Close your eyes now, and let the river's current carry you through this slow, ancient world. You live on the edge of the Nile. You are not a builder of pyramids or a priest in linen robes. You are a farmer. The year is 1300 BCE. The inundation has just ended. The fields are soft, rich with black silt. It is time to plant. You rise before. The ibis calls. You eat flatbread, a few figs, if you're lucky. You yoke oxen, till soil. You sweat. The sun is relentless. The flies worse. You work the land, but it is not yours. It belongs to the temple, or to the state. You must give a portion of every harvest as tax. Officials arrive with ledgers and rods to measure your grain. If you fall short, punishment. You are bitten by insects. You suffer boils. Your feet crack. The water you drink comes from the canal, warm and muddy. In drought years, you beg the gods. In flood yours, you rebuild your home. There are no holidays, only festivals where you watch others feast. Your children help in the fields. Your wife bakes bread in clay ovens, grinds grain on stone. At night you sleep on red mats. Your dreams are of rain that comes on time. You live so Pharaoh may live and go. Let us now descend. In 1922, in the Valley of the King, a British team led by Howard Carter uncovered the sealed tomb of a little-known pharaoh, Tutankhamun. At first, it was joy. Gold gleamed in the flickering torchlight. Statues, chariots, jewelry. untouched for 3,000 years. Then came whisper. Shortly after, Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's sponsor, died suddenly. Infection, they said. But others began falling ill. Some spoke of ancient spores, others of curses. Death shall come on swift wings, read a supposed inscription. It was never found, but newspapers loved it. Prue. The curse of the pharaohs spread across headlines. In truth, few deaths were unusual. By the story lingered. The fear clung. Was it mold? Coincidence? Oh, or something older? No one knows. But even today, some archaeologists still murmur a prayer before entering a tomb, just in case. Now, let us follow a softer trail of scent. The ancient Egyptians were masters of perfume. They wore it in cones atop their heads. They burned it for God. They sealed it in alabaster jars, buried it with the dead. Recipes were secret, passed from mother to daughter: myrrh, frankincense, lotus, cinnamon, oils from cypress, resins from punt. Some perfumes lasted centuries, still fragrant when tombs were opened. Modern scientists have studied these residues, even recreated a few. The smell, smoky, resinous, sweet with decay. Perfume was not just for beauty. It was status, ritual, medicine, magic. To wear the right scent was to walk with the gods. To wear the wrong one, unthinkable. Even in death, scent mattered. The body was washed, anointed, wrapped in spiceless linen. The air of ancient Egypt was thick with layers: sweat, incense, lotus, dust, a scent that lingered longer than empires. At last, we climbed the temple steps. You are a priest of Ammon in Thebes. The year is 1200 BCE. You wear white linen, freshly washed. You have not eaten meat today. Pure, your day begins before dawn. You bathe in sacred pools. You light incense. You chant. You walk in silence. Your words matter. Your presence matters more. You do not touch coin. You live inside the temple, where gods are fed daily with bread and fruit. You feed them with gesture, prayer, ritual, power. But your power is real. The temple owns land, slaves, ships, grain, more than the king. Sometimes you interpret dreams. You write in hieroglyphs. You carry secret. You fear the gods, and you know their names. You live apart, respected, feared, and always watched. At night, you return to your chamber. You read by oil lamp. The walls whisper spell. You close your eyes, and the gods listen. Thank you for walking the slow floodplains of the Nile with me. Tonight, may your rest be as deep as the tombs we left behind, and your dreams as sweet as lost perfume in desert air. Tonight, dear listener, we venture to the edge of land and sea, a place where solitude reigns and time moves with the tides. Our quiet story begins with the long, lonely days of a 19th century lighthouse keeper. Then we witness the eerie disappearance of the Flannan Isles, a mystery wrapped in fog. Next, we explore the engineering marvel of the Eddystone Lighthouse, a beacon built against impossible odds. Finally, we peer into the genteel world of seaside resort life, where Victorian ladies stroll the promenade under parasols. Let the waves carry you now into stillness, where ocean winds whisper secrets from long ago. It is 1883, and you are the keeper of a lighthouse on a remote crag of rock. Perhaps the Outer Hebrides, perhaps the coast of Maine. The place doesn't matter, only the isolation. You rise before dawn. You check the lamp, kerosene or whale oil, depending on your station. You trim the wick. You polish the lens, a massive Fresnel lens, each facet shining. The air smells of salt and smoke. Your hands are always chapped, your boots never dry. Re-record the weather in a logbook, wind direction, wave height, cloud cover. Every hour, always, you mend, you clean, you monitor the clockworks that rotate. You listen for ships. You rarely speak. Once a month, a boat brings supplies. Flour, salt, pork, tea, letters. Sometimes it doesn't come. You read, you write, you pace the tower's spiral stairs. Foghorns call across the sea like voices in a dream. You are the light, and you are alone. Now we step into something colder, something left unanswered. In December of 1900, a supplier ship approached the Flannan Isles lighthouse off the coast of Scotland. The flag was not flying. No one came to greet them. Inside, the lighthouse was empty. The clock had stopped. Meals were uneaten. One chair lay overturned. The logs ended abruptly. The three keepers, Thomas, James, and Donald, were gone. Theories blossomed. A storm had swept them away. One man went mad. Sea monsters, foreign spies, all unlikely, all possible. No bodies were ever found, only silence. To this day, the Flannan Isles remain windswept and empty. The light was automated. By the mystery never dimmed. Let us now go back to beginnings. The first Eddystone lighthouse was built in 1698 on a treacherous rock off England's south coast. A marvel until it burned down. The second was built. It collapsed in a storm. The third, designed by John Smeaton in 1759. He used interlocking stone, like puzzle pieces, anchored deep into the reef. He worked by moonlight, by tide. Men carved stone in Plymouth, then ferried it to the reef. Lived in tents, lashed to wet granite. Tools rusted, pans bled, but they built it. The light stood. It saved ships. It shaped all future lighthouse design. It still stands today, moved, reinforced, retired, a monument to stubbornness and stone. Finally, let us step away from the salt spray into refinement. You are on holidays. The year is 1870. You are in Brighton, or perhaps Margate. You wear a high coloured dress, stiff with lace, or a starched suit, hat in hand. You walk the promenade after breakfast. The sea air is believed to heal. You breathe deeply. You buy rock candy. You watch the waves, but do not touch them. Ladies gather for tea. Gentlemen read newspapers aloud. Children build castles far from the tide. Bathing machines roll into the surf. Wooden boxes on wheels to protect modesty. Dipped quickly, shrieking, then wheeled back. At night, the gas lights glow. You attend a concert or play with. You discuss the weather, the Queen's health. You retire to your rented rooms. The sea hums below the window. Vacation. Proper, polite, and endlessly repetitive. Thank you for standing with the light tonight. May your dreams be as steady as a turning lens, and your rest as deep as the ocean's hush. Proud tonight. Dear listener, we return to the crowded, cobbled streets of ancient Rome, not to marvel at temples or togas, but to squeeze into the cramped upper floor of an insula, where smells rise and ceilings leak. From there, we follow the paranoid unraveling of Emperor Nero. Then we explore the mysterious underground cults that thrived beneath Rome's street. Finally, we stroll through the perfumed courtyards of a wealthy Roman villa, a life as distant as the stars. Let your breath slow now, as we drift gently into the eternal city's forgotten corners. It is the 1st century CE. You live in an insula, a Roman apartment block, 5 stories above the street. The walls are cracked, the staircase sways. You sleep near your cooking fire, hoping it doesn't start another blaze. You share a space the size of a modern garage with your family, your tools, your goods. There is no plumbing. You carry water up daily. You use a chamber pot. The air smells of smoke, oil, and rot. Your neighbors argue through paper-thin walls. Children cry. Vendors shout. Below, your rent is high. If the ceiling leaks, the landlord shrugs. Fires are common, so are collapses. You sleep lightly. You wake before dawn to work a stall, sweep a bathhouse, press olives. You return late. Bye. You eat barley porridge, maybe a feed. You sleep again, and repeat. It is Rome, but not the Rome of statue. It is the Rome of soot. Now, let us climb from poverty to peril. Nero became emperor at 17. At first, he played the lyre, gave speeches, pardoned criminals. The people cheered. Then the shadows grew. He executed his stepbrother, then his mother, then his wife. He blamed Christians for the great fire of Rome. He watched them burn in his garden, lighting his party. He fancied himself an artist. He forced citizens to attend his endless performances. Paranoia ruled him. Senators fell. Friends disappeared. By the end, the army turned. He fled the city. Declared it an enemy of the people, he hid in a villa. Alone, panicked, he ordered a servant to help him end his life. His last words: "But an artist dies in me. Let us now go beneath." Rome thrived on gods. Jupiter, Mars, Venus, but also many others. Beneath the temples were hidden sanctuaries. The cult of Mithras met underground. Followers were mostly soldiers. They feasted in stone caverns. They baptized in blood. Their god was born from a rock and slayed a cosmic bull. There were also Isis cults from Egypt, and Cybele worshippers from Anatolia. Loud, ecstatic, full of drums and frenzies. Romans feared and tolerated them until they grew. Some rites remained secret. We find altars, statues, inscriptions, but not meanings, not fully. These cults promised rebirth, mystery, a way through fear. Beneath the empire's marble, whispers and shadows. Now we return to light, to space, to cool courtyards. You are a Roman of means. You own land, slaves, a summer villa. You wake to birdsong and perfume. Your floors are mosaic. Your walls painted with myths. You drink watered wine. You bathe, dictate letters, tour your gardens. You wear a tunic of fine wool. You discuss politics, attend the theater, host poets. Your meals come in courses: olives, fish, honey cakes. You recline while others serve. You visit your atrium, where a fountain bubbles. You nap. You read scrolls aloud. You end the day watching the sun fall behind cypress trees. Rome is not perfect, but from here it feels eternal. Thank you for climbing the winding steps of ancient Rome with me tonight. May your dreams be free of smoke and stone, and your sleep as restful as a patrician's final sigh. Welcome once more, dear listener, to another slow journey through time. Tonight we enter the dim, candlelit chambers of a medieval scriptorium. Ink-stained fingers, aching backs, and silent discipline await. From there, we witness the haunting tale of a manuscript that changed hands through centuries of war. Next, we decipher the strange marginalia hidden in sacred books, doodles, demons, and all. Finally, we step into the quiet study of a university scholar living among parchments and pigeons. Let the ink flow slowly, and may your mind turn softly like the pages of forgotten tomes. It is the year 1273. You are a scribe in a monastery somewhere in northern France. You live by bells, not clocks. 7 prayers a day, and hours bent over parchment. Your chamber is cold. Candles flicker. The smell of ink, leather, and damp wool surround you. You rise with the sun, eat a crust of bread, then begin your task. Be your tools: quill, ink, knife, and patience. You copy texts carefully, beautifully. One error, and the page may be discarded. You shape each letter like a prayer. You work in silence, broken only by the scratch of pen. Your hands cramp, your eyes blur. The cold creeps in. Be. You must not sneeze. The work is slow. A Bible may take years. A mistake may cost your supper. But the words are sacred. Your role, quiet but vital. You may not be remembered, but the book will endure. Let us now follow one book, a Psalter Capita, in 1354, bound in leather, gilded by hand. It sat in a cathedral's library for 80 years. Then came war. The monastery was looted. The book taken, passed from soldier to noble, sold, gifted, forgotten. In the 1500s, it was rebound in velvet. In the 1700s, it was shelved in a dusty London manor. It survived damp indifference. In the 20th century, it was found in an attic, moldy but whole, restored, displayed. Now it rests behind glass. Read no more, but watched by many. Its makers unknown. Its journey a quiet epic. Now let us peer into the margins. Medieval scribes often left odd drawings beside sacred texts. Why? Perhaps boredom. Perhaps meaning no one knows for sure. You may find rabbits jousting, monks fighting, snails, cats playing the bagpipes, naked men riding fish. Some show demons, some show saints, some are just stray. They do not match the holy words. They are human, silly, grotesque, playful. They remind us that scribes were not machines. B had humor, questions, moods, and they left them in the margins, where few would look. At last, let us leave the monastery and walk to a city. It is the 14th century. You are a scholar at the University of Bologna, or Paris, or Oxford. You live in a small rented room. You sleep on a straw bed. You study by oil lamp. Books are chained to desks. Expensive, precious. You attend lectures in Latin. Your robes are dark. Your shoes worn. You debate logic, theology, medicine. You copy your own notes. You trade parchment with classmates. You recite before masters. Lunch is bread, cheese, and wine. Dinner is hope. You are poor, but driven. Pitch future waits. In every scroll, you live among pigeons and ink, and you dream in script. Thank you for journeying through ink and parchment with me tonight. May your sleep be undisturbed as a closed codex, and your dreams lined in gold leaf and peace. Tonight, dear listener, we traveled to the smoky hearths of early America, before the country had borders, before the stove had knobs. There were kitchens where lives were cooked into history. We begin with the hard, endless labor of a colonial kitchen worker. Then we witness the fiery drama of the Great Boston Fire. After that, we explore the surprising origins of early American recipes and food culture. Finally, we visit the genteel parlor of a wealthy colonial hostess, where tea is served but tensions simmer. Draw the shutters now, settle near the coals, and let time simmer slowly, like stew in a black iron pot. It is the year 1742. You are not a landowner, not a soldier, not even free. You are the cook. You rise before first light. The fire must be stoked, not with matches, but with flint, breath, and luck. Pitchin is cold, then far too hot. Smoke stings your eyes. You grind corn by hand. Knead dough. Stir porridge in cast iron pots that burn your wrists. The oven is a brick cavity, heated with firewood. You judge temperature by instinct, not diet. But the work is constant. Boil, roast, smoke, scald, preserve, scrub. You slaughter chickens, pluck feathers, render fat, brew beer, feed 10, 12, sometimes 20, including children, laborers, and travelers. You are watched. Your work is judged. One undercooked meat pie could bring scorn or sickness. Your hands are blistered, your back bent. Your day ends. After dark, the fire must be banked again, and tomorrow it begins anew. Now let us rise from the hearth into sudden flame. On March 20th, 1760, Boston burned. The fire started in a small shop near the harbor. Within hours, wind carried sparks from roof to roof. The town was built of wood, dry, cramped, vulnerable. Barrels of rum exploded. Church bells melted. By entire blocks vanished. Citizens formed bucket brigade. They tore down buildings to slow the flames. It barely helped. 174 houses lost. Nearly 2,000 left homeless. Yet remarkably few dead. In the aftermath, Boston rebuilt with stricter fire codes, wider streets, brick and stone. But the fire remained, in memory, in maps, in the scars of the city, a warning and a turning point. Let us now stir the pot of the past. Early American food was not bland. It was inventive, eclectic, rooted in necessity. They used molasses instead of sugar, salt pork instead of fresh meat, corn, beans, squash, the three sisters, blended with English pies, French stews, West African spices. Recipes were not precise. A handful of flour, a teacup of lard, bake until done. There were syllabubs, Indian pudding, ash cake, potted eel. Cookbooks were rare. Most instructions passed orally, from hearth to hearth. Every dish told a story of trade, adaptation, survival. Even now, some flavors linger. Spice in pumpkin pie, temps in cider, heat in pepper sauce. A taste of history preserved on the tongue. Now let us climb the wooden steps to a finer room. You are the lady of the house. The year is 1771. You wear stays, a gown, powdered hair. be your home smells of beeswax and bread. The windows let in the hum of a growing town. You arrange tea with guests, porcelain cups, sugar cubes, lemon peel. Your children are taught civility. Put your servants taught obedient. Roar. You read aloud. From Addison, you embroider. Boof. You supervise the kitchen, though you rarely enter it. News arrives from London. A new tax, a new speech. A neighbor whispers a protest. You smile politely, but you listen closely. Later, you walk the garden paths. The world changes quietly beneath your feet. Thank you for joining me near the Colonial hearth tonight. May your dreams rise slowly, like yeast in a warm bowl, and your sleep be as quiet as a sealed pantry in winter. Good night.